Is a dropping unemployment rate always good news?
Hmm.
Well, you've shared the Bureau of Labor Statistics January 2025 Employment Situation Report.
Right.
And honestly, it's a bit of a head-scratcher
Yeah.
on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Things look positive.
Yeah.
But we're going to do what we do best here at the Deep Dive. We're going to dive deeper
Okay.
and uncover what's really happening
Okay.
in the job market.
It's all about context, isn't it? The numbers alone rarely tell the whole story.
You're exactly right.
Right.
Let's start with that unemployment rate.
Okay.
Dropped to 4.0% in January.
Oh, right.
Now, that's a number we usually celebrate.
Yeah.
But, and there's always a but, right?
Sure.
The number of unemployed people stayed almost the same
Oh, wow.
at 6.8 million.
So the decrease isn't because more people found jobs.
Right.
Instead, it seems more people have just stopped looking for work.
Yeah.
They're no longer considered part of the labor force.
That's a really important distinction. Makes that 4% unemployment rate a little less celebratory, don't you think?
Uh-huh.
Now, the report also shows an increase in non-farm payroll employment. 143,000 new jobs added.
Okay.
Sounds pretty good.
It's positive,
Right.
for sure, but it's actually lower than the average monthly gain we saw throughout 2024,
Oh, okay.
which was 166,000.
So a little bit of a slowdown.
Yeah.
Is this a sign of a cooling economy? What's going on in specific sectors?
Well, healthcare saw a strong gain of 44,000 jobs.
Okay.
Retail trade followed with 34,000 new positions.
Mm-hmm.
We also saw increases in social assistance and government, adding 22,000 and 32,000 jobs, respectively.
Interesting to see government doing so well.
Yeah.
Are there any sectors losing jobs?
Yes. Mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction lost about 8,000 jobs.
Okay.
This sector has been a bit unpredictable in recent years.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so a mixed bag of growth and decline.
Right.
Let's talk wages now.
Okay.
Everyone wants to know if their paychecks are keeping pace.
Mm-hmm.
What did the report say?
Well, the report shows average hourly earnings for private non-farm employees rose by 0.5% in January.
Okay.
That brings the 12-month increase to 4.1%.
All right.
That sounds promising, but
Right.
the report doesn't factor in inflation.
So it's hard to know how much those wage gains translate into buying power.
Exactly. Are we actually making more money?
Right.
Or just keeping pace with rising costs? That's
Yeah.
a question we need to explore.
Yeah.
But before we get to that,
Yeah.
there's something else we need to address. Data revisions.
Data revisions. That sounds technical. Why should we care?
They're crucial because they can actually change our understanding of what happened in the recent past.
Okay.
In this case, the job numbers for November and December 2024 were revised upwards significantly,
Oh, why?
a combined 100,000 jobs higher.
So the economy was actually stronger at the end of 2024 than we initially thought.
Precisely. Therefore, that January slowdown becomes even more notable.
Uh-huh.
It suggests a potential shift in the economic landscape.
Oh.
Now, brace yourself for this next part. It's the part that made me raise an eyebrow.
Okay.
The population adjustment.
Okay. This sounds intriguing. Lay it on me.
So the Census Bureau updated its population estimates,
Okay.
and this had a ripple effect on the employment data.
Right.
The civilian non-institutional population aged 16 and over
Yeah.
increased by a whopping 2.9 million people.
Wow, that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
So suddenly there are millions more people considered part of the potential workforce.
Exactly. And because of that, the labor force and employment numbers seem inflated.
Right.
It makes that drop in the unemployment rate,
Yeah.
which we talked about earlier,
Right.
appear more significant than it might actually be.
Okay. I'm starting to see how a seemingly straightforward number like the unemployment rate is actually influenced by a bunch of other factors. It's more complex than it appears at first glance.
Absolutely. And we haven't even touched on some of the more persistent challenges in the job market,
Okay.
like long-term unemployment.
Right. There's always more to uncover.
Yeah.
The report shows that 1.4 million people have been jobless for 27 weeks or more.
Wow.
That represents over 20% of all unemployed individuals.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that behind these overall trends are real people facing real struggles.
It highlights the importance of looking beyond those top-line numbers.
Yeah.
And recognizing that the employment situation can vary dramatically
Right.
depending on your industry, location, and even demographics.
Uh-huh.
So while the national picture can provide some insights, it's essential to personalize this data and understand what it means for you.
All right, so let's do that.
That's where this deep dive gets really valuable.
Okay.
We're not just trying to understand the national employment situation.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out what it all means for you, the listener.
Exactly. So let's put this data into perspective. For
Mhm.
someone who might be considering a career switch right now,
Sure.
what advice would you give them?
Well, remember those sectors we talked about
Mhm.
that are showing strong growth?
Yeah.
Healthcare, retail, social assistance.
Yeah.
Those could be great places to start exploring.
Okay.
They suggest areas where employers are actively looking for talent.
So if you're currently in a field that's struggling, like that mining and oil and gas sector we mentioned,
Right.
it might be worth looking into those growing areas.
Absolutely. But it's not just about jumping from one sector to another.
Okay.
It's about understanding the specific skills and roles that are in high demand within those sectors.
Right. So someone with experience in a shrinking field can't just assume they can waltz into a healthcare job.
Right.
They need to do their research, right?
Exactly.
The kinds of things.
For example, within healthcare,
Uh-huh.
we're seeing huge demand for specialized nurses, technicians,
Okay.
and even data analysts.
Interesting.
So if you have a background in those areas,
Yeah.
you're in a strong position.
Right.
But even if you don't,
Yeah.
there are often opportunities for retraining or upskilling
Okay.
to meet those needs.
So this report can be a springboard.
Uh-huh.
It gives us a sense of the broader trends.
Yeah,
But then we need to dig deeper
right.
and personalize the information.
Absolutely.
We need to figure out how our own skills and interests align with those trends.
I completely agree. And don't forget those data revisions we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The fact that job numbers for late 2024 were revised upwards
Right.
suggests there's a lot more dynamism in the economy
Okay.
than a single month snapshot might reveal.
It's like looking at a single frame from a movie.
Right.
You might get a glimpse of what's happening,
Yeah.
but you miss the full story, the momentum leading up to that moment.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to go beyond those headlines
Okay.
and engage with the data on a deeper level.
So how do we do that?
Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics website
Yeah.
is an incredible resource.
Yeah.
It has detailed tables that break down employment by industry, occupation, location,
Wow.
and demographics.
There's a treasure trove of information there,
Yeah.
but it can also be overwhelming.
Right.
Any tips for navigating it all?
I always recommend starting with your own goals and interests.
Okay.
What kind of work are you passionate about?
Yeah.
What skills do you already have?
Uh-huh.
What industries are you curious about?
Okay.
Use those questions as a starting point for your exploration.
So it's almost like having a personalized treasure map.
Exactly.
You know, that there's valuable information out there,
Yeah,
but you need to use your own goals as a compass
exactly.
to find the treasure that's relevant to you.
I completely agree. And remember, this is just 1 month's worth of data.
Yeah.
The employment situation is constantly changing.
Right.
It's crucial to stay informed,
Uh-huh.
be willing to adapt, and continue learning
Okay.
throughout your career journey.
Great advice. Now, before we move on,
Uh-huh.
I have to ask about that population adjustment.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal.
Right.
2.9 million more people entering the potential workforce. What does that tell us about the future of work?
It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And it suggests several things.
Uh,
First, it underscores the influence of demographics on the labor market
Well,
as the population changes.
mhm.
So too will the demand for different types of skills and jobs.
So it's not just about keeping up with the latest technology.
Right.
It's also about understanding these broader shifts in society
Yes.
and how they might impact the job market.
Precisely. And if we see more people entering the workforce than leaving it,
Uh-huh.
competition for jobs could intensify.
Okay.
This means it's even more important to differentiate yourself,
Yeah.
whether it's through specialized skills, advanced education, or unique experiences.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah.
A larger workforce could lead to more innovation and economic activity.
Right.
But it also means individuals need to work harder
Yeah.
to stand out and secure those opportunities.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's where having a deep understanding of the data can be incredibly valuable.
Right.
By knowing which skills are in demand, which industries are growing,
Mhm.
and where the opportunities are concentrated,
Yeah.
you can position yourself for success in a rapidly changing world.
Instead of just passively reading a news article about the jobs report,
Right.
we want our listeners to become active analysts.
Uh-huh.
We want them to use this data to make informed decisions about their own career paths
Yes.
and navigate the future of work.
I couldn't agree more. It's about empowering yourself with information
Yeah.
and taking control of your own career destiny.
Okay, love that.
Now, while this report focuses on the overall employment situation,
Mm-hmm.
it's crucial to remember that there are individual stories and challenges within that broader narrative.
You're talking about those 1.4 million people who've been out of work for 27 weeks or more, right?
Exactly. Long-term unemployment is a persistent problem,
Yeah.
and it often reflects deeper structural issues in the economy. It's important to acknowledge those challenges and consider solutions that address those underlying problems.
We can't just celebrate the positive trends
Right.
without recognizing that there are segments of the population who are struggling.
I completely agree.
Absolutely. Now, shifting gears a bit,
Okay.
let's go back to that question of wage growth.
All right.
The report showed an increase,
Yeah.
but we also noted that it doesn't account for inflation.
Right.
So how do we get a clearer picture
Okay.
of whether our paychecks are truly keeping up with the rising cost of, well, everything?
That's where we need to look beyond the raw numbers
Yep.
and consider the bigger economic picture.
Right.
For example, if wages are increasing at 4.1%,
Yeah.
but inflation is hovering around 3%,
Okay.
then real wage growth is only about 1%.
So we're essentially just treading water.
Right.
We might feel like we're making more money,
Yeah.
but our purchasing power isn't actually increasing all that much.
That's a key takeaway. And it highlights the importance of considering inflation when evaluating any economic data, especially wage growth.
Yeah, it's easy to get excited about a 4% raise.
Right.
But the cost of groceries, housing, and healthcare are all increasing at a similar rate.
Yeah.
Then that raise doesn't really mean much, does it?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it underscores the need for a more holistic understanding of the economy.
Uh-huh.
We can't just focus on isolated data points.
Okay.
We need to see how they all connect and influence each other.
It's all about context, isn't it?
It is.
And speaking of context,
Yeah.
let's talk about something else the report doesn't explicitly address,
Okay.
the changing nature of work itself.
That's a crucial topic.
Yeah.
And it's something that's often overlooked in these kinds of reports.
We've been talking about job growth and unemployment rates and wages.
Yeah.
But what about the bigger picture?
Okay.
How is technology transforming the very nature of work?
Right.
Are there jobs today that won't exist in 5 years?
Yeah.
Are there jobs in 5 years that don't exist today?
Right.
These are the kinds of questions I think a lot of our listeners
Yeah.
are grappling with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those are precisely the kinds of questions we should be asking.
Right.
This report gives us a snapshot of the current employment landscape,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't necessarily capture those seismic shifts
Yeah.
happening beneath the surface.
Like what kinds of things?
Automation, artificial intelligence, remote work,
Yeah.
all these trends are reshaping industries
Right.
and redefining what it means to have a job.
It's both exciting and a little scary, isn't it?
It is.
On one hand, these advancements can lead to, increased efficiency, new opportunities, a better quality of life. But on the other hand, there's the fear of job displacement,
Right.
the widening skills gap, and the potential for increased inequality.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Right.
But one thing is clear. Adaptability is key. Those who are willing to learn new skills, embrace new technologies,
Yeah.
and be flexible in their career paths will be best positioned to thrive in this evolving landscape.
So if more people are leaving the workforce than joining it,
Right.
like we saw in January,
Yeah.
what does that tell us about the future of work? And what skills or industries become even more valuable in that kind of environment?
That's the million-dollar question.
I know, right?
It could signal a shift in priorities,
Okay.
with people opting for different paths.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
Perhaps focusing on caregiving,
Oh,
entrepreneurship, or even early retirement.
interesting.
This could result in a more diverse and dynamic economy,
Right.
but it could also create challenges in filling certain roles.
Almost like a reshuffling of the deck.
Yeah.
People reassessing what work means to them.
Right.
Maybe they're prioritizing purpose and fulfillment over traditional notions of career success.
Exactly. But it could also point to underlying economic anxieties. Perhaps some individuals are discouraged by the lack of well-paying jobs.
Right.
Or fear that their skills are becoming obsolete.
Yeah.
This could lead to a growing divide between those who flourish in the new economy and those left behind.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of technological advancements
Right.
and forget about the human cost of disruption.
Uh-huh.
So what can we do to prepare for these changes and ensure that everyone benefits from this new world of work?
I think it starts with education and training,
Okay.
equipping people with the skills they need to adapt and thrive in a rapidly changing job market.
So, like, what kinds of things?
This means investing in STEM education,
Okay.
but also in areas like critical thinking, creativity, and communication.
Right.
Those uniquely human skills that are difficult to automate.
So we need a workforce that's both tech-savvy and human-centered.
Precisely. And it's not just about formal education.
Oh, yeah.
It's about fostering a culture of lifelong learning, where individuals are empowered to upskill and reskill throughout their careers.
It's about being proactive and taking ownership of your own career destiny.
Absolutely.
And that's where this deep dive comes full circle.
Yeah.
We've analyzed the data,
Uh-huh.
we've explored the trends,
Right.
and we've identified the challenges.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to each individual to take this information and use it to make informed decisions about their own career path.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
This report is a tool, a resource, a starting point.
Okay.
It's up to each of us to take that tool and build something amazing with it.
So for those of you listening,
Yeah.
here's your call to action.
Yeah.
Don't just take our word for it.
Right.
Go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website.
Okay.
Explore those data tables.
Yeah.
See what gems you can uncover.
Uh-huh.
Use this information to make informed decisions about your own career, whether it's upskilling, reskilling,
Right.
or venturing into a completely new field.
Yeah.
And remember, the employment landscape is constantly evolving.
Huh?
What's true today might be different tomorrow.
Right.
Stay curious, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay adaptable.
Those are words to live by in today's world.
Well said.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the January 2025 jobs report.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the nuances of the unemployment rate
Uh-huh.
to the transformative power of technology.
Oh.
But as always, there's more to explore, more to learn, and more to discuss.
Right.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Right.